The following is a recording with Michael Shellenberger. He is one of the journalists that dropped one of the Twitter files. In particular, he was Twitter files number 7, the one that involved the FBI and the Hunter Biden laptop. It's a brief interview, but I think it's worth a listen. I think you'll enjoy it, and so here we go.
Either side of the extremes.
Hey, we have Michael Shellenberger here who broke the FBI story in the Twitter files, so let's flip it to him and to see he can, because I think maybe the audience isn't caught up on like what was discovered. So you want
now I have to follow Elon Musk. That doesn't seem fair.
Yeah.
Hey guys,
and Michael, I head back to work.
So all right. Thanks guys.
See you later, Elon. Thank you later.
Hey guys.
Oh, hey Michael, how are you?
I'm good.
Just a quick question for
Michael,
you.
Michael, first of all, who makes that sweater?
I'll send you mine, man. Do you want it, or are you making fun of it?
No, I'm asking.
You're the master of sweaters. High praise from you, brother. High praise.
I'm asking.
Just briefly, Michael, isn't the FBI supposed to get warrants to take actions with folks? And then I guess, is that at the crux of this? Are they doing this at other companies, you think? Are they just like embedded in YouTube? Should we expect they're embedded at Meta? And that they don't get warrants, and they're kind of tipping the scales, and is that a good thing for society or a bad thing for society? It's a bit of a basic question.
Yeah, well, I think there's multiple issues relating to FBI that I think have to be unpacked a bit. But the first one is that FBI was constantly pushing the boundaries of what is legally and ethically acceptable in terms of requesting information. Now, I think what you saw over the last 3 weeks was a shift in, I think, our own understanding that we did see more pushback from Twitter executives against FBI and some alarm bells being rung in terms of the requests that were being made from the intelligence community. But these guys were really persistent. They kept asking for more. They kept getting more and more cooperation. It's very troubling. It does look like Congress is going to look into this. The two heads of the committees that are tasked with this have said that they're going to look into it next year. I think the other thing that we saw that I think is more troubling was this persistent effort to basically communicate to Twitter executives, but also to news media, national security correspondents, that there was this heavy foreign infiltration going on, this Russian disinformation. And it appeared to me, looking at all the evidence both that we saw from within Twitter and from outside of it, that this was pretty organized effort to convince key executives at Twitter and Facebook, but also these key reporters, that they should expect a hack and leak operation sometime right before the elections having to do with Hunter Biden. I find that very suspicious.
Can I make an observation? I think that maybe what we're finding out is that the mainstream media tried to go back to its 1980 Cold War playbook and turn Russia into a boogeyman. But as we're seeing in the Ukraine war, they're not nearly the formidable foe that we thought they were. And so it could probably be the case that in 2016, they were as inept technically as they are militarily right now. And so we may have just built up this monster that is kind of more like, a much smaller thing to be worried about. And we all ran with it because we had no evidence. But the Ukraine-Russia war is evidence that, this highly sophisticated war machine and propaganda machine is not that good at their job.
Right. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of interest that we're being served by hyping the so-called Russian misinformation threat. One of them was just to simply explain away the Trump phenomenon as a consequence of foreign interference. Certainly the people that ran Hillary Clinton's campaign had an interest in doing that. But then you saw it become a sort of way, I think, to condition people for the release of the Biden laptop. And again, I can't prove that, but it is striking that the Yoel Roth, this main Twitter executive who I think was the object of this misinformation campaign, testified under oath that he was being bombarded with these messages all throughout 2020 that they should expect some sort of a hack and leak operation, so that when the New York Post finally did report on that computer in 2014, it was briefly censored by Twitter, but I think more importantly it was discredited in the minds of many voters, including myself. I really didn't think that laptop was what they said it was, and it turned out that it was. So I do think there's a real troubling pattern of behavior by both the FBI agents, but also by the former FBI executives, including the deputy chief of staff and the chief counsel from FBI that were at Twitter as executives at the time.
And in fairness, Michael, this has been brought up many times, but I just would like your take on it, because you're a lifelong Democrat, correct?
Until last year.
Great. So it would, just lest anybody think that you are like some MAGA supporter here.
Just like my sweater.
Yeah, exactly. This was all in the backdrop of Trump asking for the Russians, during that debate to hack Hillary, for him interfering with Zelensky and trying to get him to give dirt on Biden, and the fact that Hunter Biden was obviously dirty. So to expect a hack, there was massive precedent for it, so that set the stage for this, correct?
For sure, and there is definitely that going on, and maybe that's all there was to it. It is just striking, of course, because, and I didn't even mention this is Twitter thread part 7 that I did on this issue. I didn't even get into the fact that, within a few days, many former senior heads of intelligence organizations and others came out and said that it was the result of a Russian disinformation campaign. So yeah, sure. I mean, I guess we could find some other explanation for it, whether it was innocent or coordinated. But it is striking. Also, I think the other thing that we found was the contrast between the threat inflation and what Twitter was finding themselves. I mean, there was Yoel Roth would respond to FBI that, yeah, we looked into these accounts that you mentioned, and they were all very low follower accounts with very little activity. So they just weren't finding very much foreign influence on the Twitter platform. And so I just think it was grossly inflated, either for kind of good reasons or bad reasons, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's there's no perfect way to police this stuff, obviously. And okay, well, listen, we appreciate your reporting.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing it. And if you haven't read Michael's book, San Francisco, you did some great reporting there as well, and continued success in your investigative journalism career.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right.
Hey, Michael, sorry. Hey, you did an interview on, I think I saw it on YouTube or something, where you interviewed someone who was homeless in San Francisco, and they were addicted to drugs, and they kind of said some narrative about how they were in this condition because San Francisco basically pays them to be homeless and pays them to do drugs on the street. Did that ever get published, and did that come out? Because it was such a compelling couple of minutes that you got on tape there. It really, for me, sent home a message of how far kind of progressive policies can take a society, and it's such a beacon for where things might go as other people start to think about adopting similar policies around the world, which is why I thought it was such important reporting. Whatever happened with that, and where can folks see that? Because it was such a moving interview for me.
Yeah, if you just Google Michael Shellenberger YouTube homeless, you'll be able to find all my videos. There's a lot of them that we did with people on the street. All of them, of course, people asking and wanting to do them. But yeah, I mean, I also wrote about that in my book, which is basically that San Francisco pays a cash welfare payment of somewhere between $600 to $700. Plus, you can get $200 in food stamps, and a lot of people sadly use that to maintain their addiction. And this gentleman, James, with the tattoos on his face, was very honest about how he was playing the system. In fact, he was himself, we found this increasingly kind of horrified by the incentives that San Francisco was creating for people to live on the streets and live on the streets in their addiction. So yeah, you can find that on YouTube.
Like so many people say, incentives drive behavior, and unfortunately, these policies all came from a good place, from a kind heart, and the idea that we could help people in need. And unfortunately, the way that the incentives get structured, they can actually cause more harm than good. It's such an important lesson. I just wanted to say that because I think your reporting on this really hit that home. So thanks for doing that. I think it's really important because we have to do the right thing for people, but we also have to be careful that the policies are done in the right way. So
I think
you.
It's so well said, Friedberg, because when you're, Michael, and I just think you're very courageous for doing it, because it's very easy for somebody to say, oh, well, you are being callous. The truth is, incentives matter, and we see this over and over again. If you pay for something, you get more of it. And really, San Francisco is bearing the burden. I think this is what your book and and a lot of the videos you've made, at least the message I got was, San Francisco has the lowest price of drugs, the lowest enforcement, and the most incentives. Therefore, they suffer because every person who is addicted comes here because they speak to each other, and 90% of the people who are in San Francisco are here because we have created an incentive structure. Is that directionally correct as we wrap here?
Yeah, 100% correct. Including just the non-enforcement of laws against sleeping on the sidewalk, doing drugs in public, not requiring. I mean, ultimately, 3 times more people die living outside as an unsheltered homeless person rather than being in a shelter. And for me, that's all you need to know that we cannot allow our brothers and sisters to sleep on the street, no matter how desperate they sound about wanting to avoid going inside. It's 3 times deadlier to be on the street than inside.
So the compassionate thing is to force people into housing.
Yes,
and that's just very tough for people to say. But because we have this perception that people have freedom and they should have the right to do this. But a person who's taking fentanyl, in your research, is not thinking correctly. And if it was any family member of ours, we would not want them to make that decision for themselves. We'd want somebody else to make that decision for them, correct?
I would want that if I was on the street so desperate that I was, smoking fentanyl and breaking multiple laws every day. Of course, I would want to be hospitalized. And usually, people overcome their addiction. That's the good news. We always leave out of it, but it is possible. People do overcome their addiction all the time, but they often need an intervention from family and friends. And if that's too late for that, then you need the intervention from the city.
All right, Michael. Thanks, you,
Michael. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
So that was Michael Shellenberger. I am going to list his information below if you'd like to give him a follow on Twitter. And I will see you in the next Twitter Files. Hopefully we'll be getting a new Twitter Files released soon regarding all this COVID interference. So looking forward to that. And if you're listening to this when this video first came out, it's actually New Year's Eve. So I'm wishing everybody a happy and healthy 2023. And let's make it a good one. All right, take care. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.